Hey, collectors, it's Anthony from HNE Games here, and I am with Cameron of Arbitrary Hero, and today we're going to talk about the short-lived Transformers trading card game by Wizards of the Coast. Hi, Cameron.
How's it going?
No idea. But anyway, it's like 85 degrees and humid outside, so no one wants to be outside. So I'm sitting in air conditioning, and we're going to go talk about cards without motorcycles. So if you could tell everybody who's watching how they can learn more about you and Arbitrary Hero.
Yes. So we do have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/arbitrary hero gets to us. We're also on Twitch at Arbitrary Hero. And on Facebook, you can search Arbitrary Hero. Each year we do an Extra Life campaign where we raise money for our local children's hospital. So we're in the middle of that campaign now. If you go look on our different social media, you'll see more information about that.
Okay, yep. So from 2018 to 2020, Wizards, there's actually a history behind it. Wizards of the Coast originally had the Pokemon license. And they produced the card game in a number of regions except for Japan back in the 1990s. So then they decided to, they created a card game called, here in the United States, it was called Kaijudo. And then they, after scrapping it and losing the Pokemon license, because Pokemon license, they lost it, then they did Kaijudo. Kaijudo still, under a different name, is still popular in Asia, but here it's dead.
But the other name is... Duel Masters? Is that
yes, it is Duel Masters. Very good. I had totally forgotten. So then, after a lot of demand, they're like, we have Transformers just sitting here. Why don't we do a card game? So they spoiled it in the end of 2017. And then finally in 2018, they released the first set, which is just Transformers, a trading card game. So... for whatever reason, anybody who's familiar with Magic the Gathering, which is Wizards of the Coast's big game,
the cash cow.
See what?
The cash cow.
Yes, the thing that if it isn't Transformers, it's the other thing making Hasbro money.
Yeah.
So essentially, right, every 6 weeks they release new Magic the Gathering product.
Is that true? Every 6 weeks?
Every 6 weeks. So every 3 months is a proper set. And then every 3 months, every other 3 months, which is 6 weeks in between each set, they do like a side set or some type of deck or something. So I played Magic way back in the day just with friends, so I don't keep up. So yeah, I had no idea. I knew it was popular. That just seems like a lot to keep up with. If Transformers got to that state where that much product was coming out, I don't think I'd be able to keep up. No,
I guess that's a good problem to have, though.
I mean, yeah, because it all sells, and then you go to hobby shops, and like there's no product there sometimes. For example, for about 20 years, I organized for the Pokemon Company. So Pokemon, because it started with Wizards here in the West, it still follows that general release schedule that Wizards started. So a primary set every 3 months, and in between at every 6 weeks, you'll get some type of deck or something that comes out that's special. Mm-hmm. So they're not as aggressive on releases as Wizards, but Pokemon does compete. But they're also Wizards is also like kind of like the benchmark other companies use for releases. So you'll see that Konami does Yu-Gi-Oh on the 3 month schedule, and then they'll do like I think this last mid-cycle they did the special God decks. So, and then they just announced Speed Duel sets, and then now they have the regular sets. So now Konami with Yu-Gi-Oh has 2 different formats that they're feeding, where Magic has, they have the standard format, they have the modern format, they have Commander. I think they just randomly make up formats and throw those in. So the more formats you have, the more you have to feed the players. For example, Pokemon has their standard format, and then they've been introducing modern and legacy formats. So they've been re-releasing special updates to old cards.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I from my perspective, I am a Transformers fan first and foremost. And then I got into the TCG, but since I didn't play a lot of other trading card games, I didn't know about like the larger industry. But that's interesting. I guess that in that light, it kind of brings a bit of retrospective like on how the Transformers TCG was performing if they were trying to hold it up to like the Magic the Gathering standard. That's a pretty high bar to meet.
Yeah, so obviously it didn't hold up. If I remember correctly, because occasionally Wizards will send out letters to stores, and I was running or co-running a store with a friend in here in Ohio, and I was handling the Transformer stuff along with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And a couple other card games, and the sales were decent on the first set, but then every release would go downhill just a little bit more, and then the pandemic hit, and they were like, you know what, we're just gonna have to end it. So instead of getting the 3-month release cycle, we kind of got whenever Wizards felt like. So we had after the first set was Combiner Wars.
Yes.
And then they did.
I think for a brief time, we got essentially a 6-month release cycle. Because what, the first wave came out, you said end of 2018, correct?
At the beginning of 2018. They announced it at the end of 2017.
Okay. Oh, then, yeah. So then it was a chunk of time. So the first set came out beginning of 2018, and then sets 2 and 3 came out 2019, and then 2, 3, and 4 came out 2019, and then wave 5, Titan, the last wave came out 2020, and that's when they canceled it.
Yeah,
so maybe they were trying to ramp up to that 3-a-year cycle, or I guess they never got to. It would have been a 4 sets a year. They never got to that point.
It was just the worst time, and if they would have kept up the momentum after the sales of the first one and done the normal release cycle, then maybe there would have been a pickup. But after Combiner Wars, which was the introduction of the Combiners mechanic in the card game, they then did, basically based off the toy line, they did Siege 1 and 2.
Yes.
So Siege 1 and 2 introduced... Combiner Wars, I think, had triple changers, but then they had triple changers in Siege as well. But then also they introduced Headmaster. No, what was Headmasters? Because Attack of the Titans was set 5, and that was the final set, and that had Headmasters.
Yeah, so the way they seemed to structure it was Wave 1 came out, and it was just Transformers the brand. It's like, here's mostly classic G1 characters with some homages to other series. Like RC's art from the Wave 1 set was like essentially prime RC colors. It had Demolisher from Cybertron. So there were some nods to like other parts of the franchise. It was mostly G1. And then it seemed like they were doing this alternating pattern of do a Prime Wars set and then a War for Cybertron set. So in Prime Wars, it was Combiner. What was it called? Combiner Wars, Titans Return, and then the last one was Power of the Primes. So Wave 2 was Combiner Wars, and then Waves 3 and 4 were the first part of War for Cybertron, which was Siege. And then Wave 5 was Titans Return. The guess that we had was that if there had been a Wave 6 and 7 would have been Earthrise, and then maybe Wave 8 would have been like Power of the Primes, and then Wave 9 and 10 would have been Kingdom if they were like following their pattern. But obviously, we didn't, as customers, we didn't really get enough data points to kind of project out what their intention was that far. I did some interviews with Drew Nolosco and the Wizards team when I met up with them at some conventions, and it did seem like they had at least planned out through a Wave 10 based on just some of the language they were using while we were talking about stuff. But yeah, I think like what you said is exactly right, that the sales, it was as a game base, it was growing, but it wasn't growing at the pace that was expected. And then COVID put the kibosh on it. The internal discussions that I had heard about was the big decision point was that at one point, the printers that Wizards has in-house in the States were struggling to keep up with the demand of Magic the Gathering, and Wizards of the Coast had to make a decision. Are we going to print more Transformers, or are we going to print more Magic the Gathering? And I think if you set up the two franchises like that, like you go with what you know is going to sell millions and millions of units, unfortunately, for us.
So in 2019, Transformers representatives from Wizards of the Coast came to Origins, which is based in Columbus, Ohio, every year.
Yeah,
and
Origins and Gen Con. Yeah.
yeah. So
We
it
went to
was
this.
yeah. So it was the summer of 2019, and at this point, I think two or three of the sets had been out. And as they do with like Wizards, they'll set up this play area, and then they'll do contests. The attendance for Transformers was so bad that they started bribing people, basically playing for free and getting booster packs just to sit in seats.
Yeah, so I don't know if it was a bribe. I remember that was something that was announced ahead of time. I think from my perspective, it was part of the promotion, was trying to get more people engaged with the game. Was, yeah, if you come in before the tournament, there's like a free play hour where you get some packs and you get to be walked through the game and that sort of stuff. Yeah, I like, again, since I can't compare it to any other trading card games from my experience, I don't know in terms of attendance, but I think we had a total of 80 players-ish at Origins, and then about the same at Gen Con. And then the big event, the Energon Invitational that happened at PAX Unplugged, that one had a total of 150, 160 people, which if you're comparing that to, I don't know what like a Magic regional event or something, I assume those get like 300, 500 people.
Yeah, so does
easy.
Pokemon. You really can't compare it to those games. I would go along the lines of, it's somewhat similar to what they did with Kaijudo originally. Because I was working at a different hobby shop, and they sent us just a ton of giveaway, like just starter packs and whatever. I actually, I was like, I have all 4 sealed original Kaijudo starter packs over here that they gave, because they gave us literally boxes of it. And if anybody,
so it's funny you mentioned Kaijudo, because I think the same team members worked on both games. So like, I'm pretty sure Drew Nolosco worked on Kaijudo. I think Matt Smith worked on Kaijudo. So I think it was like the same individuals involved in Kaijudo were the Transformers team.
Because I like the simplicity of, basically they took Magic and dumbed it down for people who can't keep all that stuff in their head. So I love the simplicity of Kaijudo. And just like with Magic, Kaijudo, you would get a box of just these 30 card decks or whatever it is, and you just give them away. And I think that's a really good thing, but they did not do that for Transformers. For Transformers, they followed the Pokemon approach, which was just give everybody promo cards. And I'm not sure which works better, but obviously it didn't do too well because Transformers is no longer a active game.
I got some people sent me some extra product, so we can talk a bit about like their approach. So like you said, in Kaijudo, there was yeah, so that's, you call that a starter set, right? Like it's a pre-constructed deck of cards. You buy it. If you buy the same product, you get the same exact cards every time. But the idea is you get one of it, or you get one of it for free maybe, and you start out in the game, and then from there you buy booster products. I think one thing for Transformers was there wasn't a really standout starter set in their product. In the first wave of cards, they had a starter set that was like Optimus Prime and Bumblebee, Ironhide, and Red Alert, I believe, were the 3 of them.
I think so.
And it was like a big box like this Metroplex one, but obviously it had those 4 guys.
Right, because it was it the, because I know they did 2 sets. One was with Decepticons in it.
That was wave 2.
That was wave 2. Okay.
I think that was a kind of a mistake they did on the launch, was that the first one should have been like you get Optimus Prime, Grimlock, like Starscream and Megatron or something, you know, so that like the fans that are like, oh, I want to play with the Decepticons, like they have here is a box that has the character I know I'm going to get a version of that character starting out with. And then the other thing is, I don't know how it works in other games, but from what I played in Magic the Gathering, the starter deck is not a super competitive deck of cards, but it is like semi-functional. In Transformers, the 2 starter decks we got were not very functional. Like they didn't really do anything except flip cards, and you could play a card, and that was like it.
It was basically to learn the basic mechanics.
Yeah. They improved those starter deck ideas when they did the Metroplex deck. Like this Metroplex as a character is a competitive character that if you get the right booster cards, this is a character you win lots of games with. And then they did this one, which is Soundwave versus Blaster, which is 2 decks in it. So you get 2 decks of about the same power level that you can play with your friends on it, and you get an Autobot one and a Decepticon one.
And you also get 3 of their tapes each.
Yes, yeah, it might be a little hard to make out on camera, but yeah, there are tapes in there. And in this one, the same thing where Soundwave never really got to be a competitive version of this character, but Blaster was a deck that you could modify and make a competitive deck. So they were figuring out, I think, the functionality of their own game when they were designing these sets. So they didn't have easy product that wasn't just buying booster packs. That was like something on the shelf for someone to grab someone's eye and check it out that way.
For anybody who's watching on Hasbro Pulse right now, you can buy the 35th anniversary Soundwave Blaster deck. So that's still available for sale. It is the retro version, which makes it it's both expensive and rare. So if you want to get into the game and like the tapes, that's a nice starting point.
Yeah, I would recommend if anyone is looking to get into the game and check it out now. Obviously, the game's not officially supported, but there are fan sets. So I'm part of a group called Alphatron Protocols, and we design fan cards of the game. And actually, I got some here. So like we've got like a fun mercenary Bumblebee. We've got other stuff. One of my favorites right now to play is Starscream, that instead of transforming into a jet, when he dies, he turns into Ghost Starscream. Yeah, so there are free cards to check out the game, but if you're like want to get a bunch of cards and just play 2 decks against a friend, the Soundwave versus Blaster set is the one I'd recommend. Because what do you say? It's like $35?
I would have to look, but yeah, I remember it was probably closer to 50. I'd be honest.
I think at retail it's 50, but I hope it's on sale.
Yeah, Hasbro Pulse doesn't typically put things on sale, so
that's a bummer. If you can find the Soundwave versus Blaster set for like $30, I think I'd recommend. That's $15 a deck, and you get 2 decks, and you can smash robots against your friends with. I'd easily recommend that.
Yeah. So we've talked about the actual sets and some of the mechanics, and then in the final set. Which is horrible because this is some bad marketing. They literally announces Wave 5, which is Attack or Titans Attack, Attack of the Titans.
Titan Masters Attack.
Titan Master. Okay, and then they say, "Well, also we're canceling it."
Yeah. So the Titan Masters Attack was originally supposed to come out in spring of 2020. And then they announced that they were delaying it because of COVID. Again, the printer issue. And then before it actually came out, they announced that they are canceling the game. That announcement happened like May of last year or something. Or
it was fairly early in the year, yeah.
Yeah, so they said in the middle of May, they said we're canceling the game. And then Titan Masters Attack ended up coming out May 29th. So that last wave, I think they underprinted knowing it was going to be their last wave, and it didn't sell because for people that like want to play a game, a continuous card game, and play in events and stuff, Titan Master or Transformers was not an option anymore already.
They sunk their own ship.
Yeah. And nowadays, the competitive community, like we're still alive and well. There's we do online events. There's between 30 and 50 of us that play pretty regularly. But it is, I mean, it's a much smaller community, but a lot of fans are enjoying the cards, or they put them in binders and they put them away. And, you know, like it's to be expected, I think, when a game loses official support. Yeah.
So again, working at a hobby shop, we had ordered in for cases of the 5th set for our orders to be entirely canceled.
Because they didn't print.
Right.
Which now the value of those cases has gone up astronomically. I think at retail a case was $120.
Well, so the stores paid we paid without the markup it was around 70.
Okay, yeah, so $70.
Yeah, and then when you would sell it would be 100.
Okay. And now if I look online, I think the Titan Master 2 cases go for like $200.
You mean the 30-pack booster box? Is because I paid $240 for a box of that set. Yes.
Yeah, one of these goes. Yeah. So what did you say?
240 USD. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is crazy to me. Yeah, I still have this. I think this is. I've got 2 of these boxes left. They're actually, if people are interested, I'm raffling them off for charity, so they can check out the Extra Life page. But yeah, so there's it's the last case of product. It's the last wave of product. It has a new mechanic, which is the Titan Masters, which I think are pretty neat. But it had major effects on the play state of the game. It essentially power crept the stuff that came before it.
Oh, it's Dragon Ball Z bad, yes.
Yeah, I think it could have been okay if this wasn't the last wave. They dial into their new power level. They come out with some new stuff. They come out with some tools for older cards to keep up. But because it was the last wave, it was like, okay, 80% of what came before it is kind of irrelevant from a competitive perspective, which sucks.
Yeah, it was especially I got Grimlock in the first set. I was like one of the last packs in the store, or the last box. Finally got a Grimlock, and then new sets come out, and Grimlock's price is lower. I think now it's like $20. I'm like, it used to be $150, $160 back when those sets were the first couple of sets.
He's still his ability is good. He just do you want me to talk about what Titan Masters do exactly and why they're so broken?
Oh, have at it.
It's this guy. It's this guy right here. This guy, his name is Grax, and what a Titan Master does is you have a body mode like this. So normally with a Transformer card, let's talk about Sea Spray. Sea Spray, they start out in alt mode, they flip to bot mode, and they have a certain amount of health, and when they lose all their health, they die. What Titan Masters do is they start out in alt mode, they flip to a body mode, and you have a head attached to them. And the head gives it some sort of benefit. So in Grax's case, he gives 5 health. So now for the cost of 3 stars, you get 5 more health on this guy. Then when he dies, this guy comes out and deploys, and he has his own 5 health. So you're essentially giving a character 10 health, which just stat crept out. Like Grimlock, I think, is a 15 health character. 13.
I know he's fairly high because him and the other Optimus Prime were those two are a team on their own.
Yeah,
and I think there were 25 total.
Yeah, but yeah, for how many stars they cost, you can spend half the number of stars and you get someone with more health that also has good abilities and stuff like that. So yeah, the Wave 5 set a new base power level, and then because nothing came out after it, there was no adjustment. And I don't know if that was just they were focus testing and play testing, and they realized, oh shit, this is the new state of the game. But then from Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, they're like, well, we're done here. Or if they just, maybe the designers didn't realize the combinations that were possible. Because it definitely left the game in a state that, I played competitive Wave 5 for a while before we started working on fan sets. And it was essentially the Sky Shadow game. Everyone was running Sky Shadow. He's a combiner and he's a Titan Master. And then everyone was running Horrible because those characters just were so much above the power curve. Now with some fan sets, we've gotten some new tools out for older characters. Like Grimlock has a stratagem from the Alpha Trion protocols that helps bring him up to the level of everyone else. But yeah, it's unfortunate that this was the end of official support, because it did, I think, leave a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth that this wave came out and the game was in a state that it was, and then it was over. Okay.
So we'll conclude part 1 with this. And when we come back for part 2, we're going to look over our collections. Like and subscribe, everybody.
See you, everyone.